I'm in SAP at the moment, and what I've done is I've created a database here that relates that I've installed the usability pack against. So if I come into the administration area of Business One and go into add-ons and go into the add-on administration, you'll see here that the usability pack is just installed as a standard add-on into Business One. Once it is there, it's entirely integrated and you wouldn't know it was a separate package, as with all of the other add-ons. The actual software components sit under the add-on menu here in the usability pack folder. And the first thing within the usability pack that you need to do is to come into the configuration. So the usability configuration here, which will allow you to determine which components of the usability pack that you want to have switched on. Now, there are a number of standard usability pack components, so I've got a number of different tabs here. The first one is the usability package, and all of the components that are listed here are part of the core usability pack software. I also then have the productivity package tab, and these are some of the components that we went through at the user day. So they are an additional software license to the core pack and are enabled separately to the core Business One pack. This afternoon, what we're going to do here is we're just going to focus, as I say, on the core usability pack, and we'll work our way through some of these components. So in fact, I'm going to leave that open. Below that, okay, so I've got the usability config. If I come below here, I've then got all of the individual modules that form part of here and all of the setup that sits within there. Now, to start to demonstrate this, what I'm going to do is to go into a business partner record. So this is my standard customer and supplier record within SAP, and I'm just going to pick out a few of the usability pack components and go through those. So if I look up a customer record in Business One, this is the record that you'll be used to seeing at the moment. And what the usability pack will do is to allow me to configure the detail that's shown on this screen. So within this screen I can use function buttons, I can use the item placement tool, I can use mandatory fields, I can also use read-only items. Okay, so these are all of the pieces that I can use within this screen that we're looking at the moment. So what I'm going to do initially is to start by configuring some of the detail on the screen. I guess most of you will know about this view system option. Okay, this is a standard Business One function, and what that means is as I hover over the different fields in Business One, if you look at the bottom left-hand corner, you can see there I've got a form ID, so 134, and item number 7. I can see there it's OCRD, which is the table that I'm sitting in, and then card name. So these are all key pieces of information that we need to know when we're using the usability pack. All right, so in the first instance, if I hover over a field sitting on this screen here, so if I'm hovering over ID number 2 there, you can see that is item 113, and the description there is item 114. So these fields here are two separate fields within SAP, so item 113 and 114. On a right click, I've got a few extra options in my drop-down list that weren't there before I had the usability pack. So what I can do within here is to decide what I want to do with this item. So I could choose to move an item. So it may be that I want this item in Business One, but I don't want it to be shown in this place. I can choose to hide an item, to make it mandatory, or to make it read-only. So in this instance, what I'm going to do is choose to hide the item. As I select that option, you can see there it's picking up the data that I need and filling in a form for me. Now, with the older versions of the usability pack, this was stuff that you all had to do manually behind the scenes. They've done quite a lot of work to try and improve the accessibility of that information. It's not always right, but it will give you a starter for 10 here in terms of the data that it's showing you. So what I'm saying here is I'm going to hide item 113 and I'm going to hide item 114. So you can see there that option there is ticked as hide. So if I add that and then come out of my business partner record and go back in again, all right, you'll see that that field has now disappeared from the main screen. All right, so that option has disappeared. If I come down to here, this is item 73, this is item 62. So again, on a right click, I can choose to hide those items. Okay, and it's picked up 73 and 62 there for me as well. So I can keep doing that and keep going in and hiding at different items on the screen. Now, up in the top right-hand corner here, you'll see it's got an option here for different users. And what this is giving me the ability to do is to hide fields from certain users. So I could choose to hide it completely and just hide it from everybody, or I can just say there are certain users that don't need to see these fields on the screen. So if I drop the button down here, this will show me my Business One users, and I can start from a position of saying hide it from nobody apart from these people, or hide it from everybody except these people. All right, so this allows you to start configuring different types of screens for different types of users, because as you see here, I can either do it by individual user, or I do have the concept here of user groups. So I can create a user group and then add users to that group and then say, all right, hide it from the sales team but make it available to the purchasing team. All right, so the ability to very specifically configure the screens for certain individuals. Okay, so if I come back into the screen again here and come back into my business partner master data, I'm now 2 fields down on my screen. All right, and you can keep doing that. You do also have the option, if you wish, to hide certain tabs. So if I hover over the tab there, that is item 214. And again, on a right click, I could say hide this item, and that would hide particular tabs from certain users. So very quickly you can completely pare these screens down to just show relevant information to people. Now, a couple of other options that I've got on here, if we come into, it doesn't really matter where we go. If I come into this main screen here, on a right click, I've got an option that would make this field read-only. Okay, and again, in making a field read-only, right, it's bringing up the read-only configuration here, and I can then choose which fields are read-only, and I can choose in which mode they're read-only, and I can choose for which users they're read-only. So again, very specifically, I can get down to these users can access these fields and these users can't. So I've got the concept of hiding them so they don't see them at all, making them visible but read-only, and making them visible but accessible. Okay, so you can get down to the read-only component there. The other option that I have on here on a right click is the option to make a field mandatory. So it could be that when I'm creating a record, I want to make sure that that particular field is completed. All right, so it forces people to complete certain fields. Now again, when I come into the configuration for this, you can say here whether that is checked during add and or whether it's checked during update, what color you want that field to be, so you can make them specific colors, again which user it's applicable to, and whether that requirement, the mandatory requirement, is an absolute or just a warning. So if it's a warning only, it will just pop up a message that says, okay, you haven't completed this, but it does give you an option to move past that if you want. Okay, so looking at the right click here, we've moved items, no, we haven't moved items yet, we've hidden items, we can make them mandatory there, and we can make them read-only. As I say, it's also possible to move items within the screen. So what I've got and what I've created are a number of user-defined fields as part of the system. So using, again, standard Business One configuration, under customization tools here, I've got an ability to create user-defined tables and user-defined fields. And as I create user-defined fields, as part of Standard Business 1, they appear on this wing. All right, so this is where you will see these set up in Standard Business 1. You do have an option here under Settings to create multiple drop-downs. So up at the top here I've got a drop-down, so you can drop those down and group certain fields under certain drop-downs as part of Standard Business 1. What I can do though as part of the usability pack is that I can take any of these fields and on a right click I can say put that on the main window. All right, so as I add that to the main window, it says where do you want to put it. So I can say I'm going to put it below and then pick the field that it's going to put that detail below. And again, in my experience here, it has picked up the field, it's picked up the pixelation positioning that it wants to apply to it. But if I come back in here, okay, and open that record, it's got it at the right height, it's got it too far right. All right, so what you've got the option there to do is just to come in and to tweak that and just make sure that you're actually showing it in exactly the position that you do want it. Oops, still a bit far. So if I say 350 there, it's a little bit of trial and error, but you can ultimately get them to line up exactly where you want them to be. I'm going to try one more time and then I shall stop. Okay. All right, so there or thereabouts. So what that's given me there is the ability to pick those fields up and then to put them on the main screen. Now, once they are on the main screen here, you can then apply the usability pack rules to it. So make it mandatory, make it read-only. Okay. While that detail is held on the Business 1 wing, you don't have that access to those fields. All right. So if you want to be able to make things mandatory or make them read-only, you do need to move them into the body of the main business partner data. Okay, so that's giving me the ability to take those fields then and put them onto the main screen. Now the other thing that I can do here is if I've got lots and lots of details that are held on a side wing here and I don't have enough real estate on my main page here to add the information in, what I can do also within here on a right click is to create a new tab. So I can come in here, I can say I want to create a new tab, I can call it as I wish, and then it's asking me which of your user-defined fields do you want to put on this new tab. All right. And again, you can then select the fields that you want and it will then drop that information into a new tab. Okay. As I come into here next time, all right, I've now got a new details tab there and I now have those fields within that details tab. All right, so you can configure them, you can maneuver them, you can choose where you want them to be. You can also even choose the positioning of this tab. So the first question here, if you look at the detail here, the first point there is which folder. Okay, this is creating a folder and a tab and suggesting the positioning of that. If I move that to position 20 and come back into my business partner record again, okay, that then appears significantly further across. So depending on the positioning that you associate with it will determine where the tab appears in that screen. Okay, so let's go back to our right-click menu and see what other options we have within here. So we have created new tab. We've edit the item placement tool configuration. What that will do for me here, if I come onto here, is just open up what I've done already and allow me to tweak that. So that's shortcut access to that information. We've moved an item, we've hidden an item, we've made it mandatory, and we've made it read-only. Now, the other component that I have on here are add function buttons to this window. Okay, so on the right-click here, what I can choose is to add different buttons to the side of my screen. Okay, so the buttons that we're creating, there are a number of standard buttons or standard options that are part of the system. So you can invoke a formatted search, you can do a user-defined menu, you can come through sales opportunities, quotations, orders, deliveries, invoices, etc. So if I come through here and say new order and select the order option and say new invoice, and select the invoice option. Okay, and then come in back into my business partner record. All right, I've now got two new buttons. All right, again, I do need to do a little bit of tweaking on this screen. I need to make the screen a bit wider, and I need to make it a bit bigger. All right, you see the buttons are actually missing off the bottom of the screen there. So let's try that again. All right, so now all of my detail fits onto the screen. So if I select a customer code here and say new order, it will pick up the sales order for me and allow me to go ahead and to create a sales order. If I were to come to the business partner record here now and pick up a supplier record and say new order, it will then pick up a purchase order for me. So it recognizes the difference between the sales and purchase order and whether you're looking at a customer or a supplier, and will then allow you to create the relevant documents accordingly. Okay, so what else can I do within here? So the options that I've used at the moment here are just standard Business One menu options. What you can also do from here are to invoke other parts of the system. All right, so I could bring in something like an incoming payment screen. I could also bring in things like special pricing. So if you have got special prices for a business partner, it'll bring that type of information in. And you can also invoke an aging report here. All right, and in creating those, what it will do again is to pass some parameters and run relevant reports. So if I come back to my customer record here and say show me the special prices, it has shortcut, it has gone to the stock management tab, to the pricing tab, to the special prices for the business partner. It's put in the code for that business partner and drawn that data back for me. All right, so it has done all of those elements. If I come to an aging report here, again it does exactly the same thing. So it pulls up the aging information, puts in the customer information, and then allows me to run an aging report for that customer or supplier by pre-populating that data for me. Okay, so we're getting to that type of detail. Some of the other options that we've got here are to use both the universal function and the external launcher. Now, as I've said so far, everything that we have done has been to add standard Business One processes into the screen, so just shortcutting access to different parts of the system. If I create a new one here, which is a universal function, okay, I'm going to create and run a report around returns. Okay, so what I'm saying here, I'm going to use a universal function, and then within Business One, I can create or use a universal function around returns. Now, what the universal function does here, it does a whole raft of different things, but where you would quite often write a formatted search, so one option that I would have within standard Business One would be to write a formatted search and attach a formatted search to a field. So if I jump out of here and come to this trading as, and it looks like there's one on there already, let's just come to this company reg number and do Control-Shift F2, I can associate a query with that, and if I pick my returns by business partner, then when I come into that field and click that button, it will run a returns by business partner. All right, standard Business One functionality that I can associate those details with the record. However, if I'm using, and I think what you'll find actually is formatted searches within Business One are quite resource intensive. So they use a lot of the system resources to run and to maintain those formatted searches. So what I'm doing is I'm taking that query that I've used for my returns and putting it into a universal function here. All right, so it's just a straightforward select query here. So show me the return number, the item code, the description, the quantity and the price, the returns reason and the returns action, where the return relates to the card code that I'm sitting in at the moment. Okay, so some reasonably basic SQL, right, that I've just associated in there. And what that will allow me to do, okay, if I update that and come back to my business partner record here, is to put a new field on the screen here that relates to returns. Now as I open that up, it runs that query for me. And in setting up within here, I've got an option to say what width I want it to be and what height I want it to be, whether I want to have a refresh button on it, whether I want the data to be automatically refreshed. So it's quite a lot more sophisticated than the standard system queries in the way that you embed it and use the data within the system. And it also uses significantly less resources. Okay, I'm finding it quite hard to tread the line here between showing you what the software does and training you on how to use it. So I am trying to keep it at quite a high level without going into too much detail, but still giving you a full overview of what else you can do. So I'm going to stick one more on here, which is a, oh dear, I can't spell, which is a Skype call. And what I'm going to do here, again, is to use a universal function. And I've got a different universal function set up here, which I will show you, because what this is doing is using an external launcher. All right, so within these function configurations, there are a whole raft of things that you can do. So you can kick off macros, you can run the SQL reports as we did a minute ago, you can run external functions, you can create line loops within the system. All right, a line loop would allow you to, if you're adding a sales order into Business One, it would check to see if you've got a delivery charge associated with the sales order, and if you haven't, it will prompt you to do that. All right, so it will just read through what you've put in the system. If it doesn't find something, it will prompt you. Okay, so a number of different things that you can do within that. But what I'm going to do here is to use an external launcher to invoke Skype and then call the number that is in field 43, okay, which is the telephone number that I've specified. Okay, and if I update that again, then back on my business partner record here, I've now got an option on there to actually go out and to make a Skype call. All right, so hopefully you'll see there are quite a few things you can do with these buttons, both internally within Business One and externally in terms of invoking external things. So you, for example, you could open Google Maps and put their postcode in and create a driving plan to actually get to a customer or a supplier. So there are a whole raft of things that you can do there. Now, everything that I've worked on there is the standard business partner master record. But if I close some of these screens now here and come to, let's go to a sales order. All right. Within a sales order in Business One, again, I can take any of the fields on a right click there. I can say make it mandatory. Okay, on any of the columns in the report. So if I were looking at a sales order that I'm putting into the system, again on a right click I can say the cost center is a mandatory field. So both any of the standard fields within the system and any of the columns within the system, you can say that those are mandatory fields as well. As you see here, I've also got the options here to create a new tab. So within this document, I could create a new tab on a sales order and again record all of my user-defined fields and to put those onto the additional tab. So all of the functionality that I've shown you on the business partner record can also be shown on here. Now, one other thing that I've done on the business partner record, you'll see here, is I've put, in this instance, I've put a validation configuration on the account balance. So here I've said, if my account balance exceeds my commitment level or my credit limit that I've put on the system, then flag it as red. All right, so again, here I'm then conditionally formatting certain fields. What I did the other day for somebody was when I selected a customer within a sales order, if that customer was on stop or has exceeded their credit limit, it came up with a big red stop sign on here. So before they got to the stage of trying to add the document, it would tell them right up front that that customer was on stop. So you've got all of that type of detail that you can put into the system as well. Now, what else have we got within here? So we've got function buttons, we've got the item placement tool, the mandatory fields. There is an option here to create default data. So if I just move some of these across, I've got a default data configuration here that will allow me to determine what the records look when I create them. So I can say every time I create a new business partner, the default position is that it's a customer, that it belongs to wholesale stores, that the currency of it is sterling, that my default supplier group is national, and then you can come through my default credit limit, my default commitment level, and so it will just invoke certain defaults as you create either customer or supplier records, but also within item records here you can say put these things in as default. So if you're not a company that uses stock, that uses the item records for coding purposes, you can say as default when I create items, don't create them as inventory items. All right, so it will just change those flags for you when the new items are created. All right, I've also got an add and edit menus option here. What this will allow me to do is to start to reconfigure the menus within Business One. And you can do this again at all sorts of levels. So if I just close this down a minute. These are the standard menu options that we have within Business One. But on a right click here at any stage, I can add a new menu into the system. So I can add a new menu or I can add a new menu structure. Right. So at the moment I've got one here which is sales and I've got business partners, but I could choose to add a new window here. Let's just call it sales actions. It doesn't really matter what we call it. And you can then determine the level at which that is added. In fact, I'm going to just take a step back. I'm going to create one called projects. Okay. Within Business One, if you want to get to the projects menu, it's buried within administration, setup, financials, and it's buried here actually within the projects. Now what I could do is I could take that projects menu and put it somewhere else on the system to make it more easily accessible to people. So what I can do there is I'm going to create one called projects, and I'm going to say within here that I want it to be part of my business partner menu. Within my business partner menu here, I've already got some menu options. They start at 0, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if I say I want it at position 6, it'll appear just below campaign. And then within here, we're then using the universal function again. So I'm saying I want to create a new menu which is called projects. It belongs to that menu ID. I want it to appear in position 6. And what do I actually want it to do? So I'm going to create a new one this time. And I'm going to say in here, I'm going to create one that's called projects, and I want it to be here a macro. And within the macros, I've then got a number of standard options within here. So I could say activate something, or activate a user, a menu UID, or activate a user table. So if you have created and put additional tables into Business One, you can use this function to add those tables onto the main menus of the system. So you don't need to go into the Tools Windows drop-down option. You can just put them as standard menus on the system. I'm going to use Activate Menu UID there. And to find out what the menu UID is, I go into Modules here. So if I go into Modules, into Administration, into Setup, into Financials, and hover over Projects, you'll see on the bottom left-hand corner there, it says that that menu UID is 8457. So I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to say Activate 8457, and add that. Okay, if I update that and then come into the Business Partner, I've now got projects in there, which will then open that menu directly for me. Okay, so again, very quick access to certain parts of the system. All right, I have seen it where they've created a brand new menu and new folders within that menu. So for the salespeople, it may be that you want access to the business partner data, you want access to the sales opportunities, and to a quotation, and to an order, and to activities. So rather than them appearing in 3 different menus within Business One, you can create your own new menu and just drop those items into your own specific menu and then turn off all other parts of the system. All right? It's all about ease of access and ease of accessibility into the system. There's a couple more that we've got within here. If I open up the add-ons section again here. All right, I've got a toolbox here as well. If we have a look at toolbox and at quick create, the toolbox is all of the different little bits and pieces that didn't warrant a module on their own, but little accessibility options that they've put into here. So within here, I've got business partners, and I've got an option if I choose to create automatic numbering. So using this, I can say every time I create a new business partner, automatically give it the next sequential number. Okay, I've got an address copy system, and what that means is when you're in the addresses here, I've got the ability to right-click, or in fact on my build to here, I can just hit this button and it will copy it to a ship to address. Right? So rather than needing to key them in twice, it just takes you directly down and puts it into the ship to information. If I have a look at my, let me just change this. If I have a look at my general information on here, okay, I've got some options here to use an email button. So what that is doing in this instance is livening up this email address. So if I select my email button, it will automatically open my email client and allow me to write an email to them. And the same with the website there, it will allow me to drill down into the website. There's a hide from list option, both within business partners and item records. And what that means is when you have put, when you've got items that are no longer valid, or you've got customers and suppliers that are no longer valid, within on the wing here, I've got a hide from list, and that will allow me to say, yep, hide that from list, so that when I'm in a sales order and I do a lookup, it won't actually show that. All right, so putting it on hold or putting it on stop means that it remains in that list, but if I say hide from list, it actually stops it showing from the list. And this is particularly useful if you've got a lot of products which are obsolete and you've got the ability to turn on and off the products that show in the sales and purchase documentation, but actually when you're going through the item records, they are still there. You'll see here I've got flags on the system. All right, so this is this is the use flags option here, and it was then for each of the customers that I've got on the system, it will then populate, I think further down here I've got some Danish, no, it'll be on my suppliers. So the flag there will change based upon the country that is determined in here. I don't know what Vanuatu looks like. But if I come back in a second, it will then, it's probably on the bill too in fact, it will then change the flag that's being shown there. I've got an option to go to the new, right? So if you are creating a new customer or supplier or item record in Business One, once you have added that information as standard, the screen is wiped clean. What you can do here is when you add it, it repopulates and allows you to continue on amending that screen. So again, it's just a very little thing, but it's quite useful if you're creating particularly, again, item records, is you create the base record and then you can continue to amend that record without having to research it again. So some very similar things in the item records, including the ability to transfer the dimensions. So any dimensions you've got on the purchase tab, you can transfer them automatically to the sales tab. Under documents here, you do have a line search, all right? So it's giving you things like a line search within here. So if I come into a sales order in the system, let's find one with a few different things on it. I've got a line search here, which will allow me to type laser, and it will go and find that within my document. It's not going to find that word. If we type true, again, it will go and find that within my document. So if I've got many, many items on a report or on a document, I can go and find them that way. The other thing that I've got here, which is quite useful, is the journal remark system. Okay, and what this will allow me to do here is to determine what detail is passed through onto the nominal ledger. So if I look at a sales invoice in Business One and go onto the accounting tab here and drill down into the journal, the remarks tab here just says AR invoice C1008. All right. What the remarks tab here will allow me to do, okay, is to, let me just, is to determine what information is actually taken through. So you can see there I could take through the customer code, the customer name, the reference, the document number, the document date, the due date, the tax date, the payment reference, the item description. So into that remarks comment on the nominal ledger, I can transfer a whole range of different information so that when you're looking at it from there, it becomes much clearer in terms of what it is that you're looking at. Okay, what else do we have? Under banking here, the ability to default bank accounts as you come into incoming and outgoing payments, to default a journal entry series that you want to use. All right, so you can default there. And then again, under the human resources, you've also got a hide from list option. So when you're selecting drop down for salespeople and things and documents, you've got an option there to use the hide from list. So all the way through, okay, in the toolbox here, there are a whole raft of different things that you can configure just to change the access into Business One. There's two more things I think we should cover very briefly. One of them is Quick Create. In fact, there's a couple more. One of them is Quick Create. So if I come into a sales order, and if my customer doesn't exist, I've got the option to press End on there, and then that will bring up this Quick Create window. So this will allow me to very quickly create a new customer or supplier record without having to enter all of the information into it. So if I had automatic numbering switched on, it would automatically populate the code in there, allow me to put the name in and the details that I need, and then just go ahead and add that. And that will create a business partner record behind the scenes and allow me to go ahead and enter the sales order. The information that is requested in this Quick Create option is defined in the setup. If I just jump into that. All right, so, and this includes a whole raft of the standard fields on the business partner record, plus any user-defined fields that you've added into the system. All right, so you can determine what information is required through the Quick Create option. All right. There is a template system that you can use. So if you are creating item records within Business One, or indeed business partners, you've got an option on a right click to both create and get a template. So if you have certain details that if you've got, say, hazardous chemicals, and when you're creating new items for hazardous chemicals, there are a certain number of fields that are always completed in the same way, you could say, I'm going to create a new item, pull me down the template for hazardous chemicals, and it will automatically populate a whole raft of those fields for you. Okay. One of the other options that you have here is the use of exchange rates, and this is something that has changed quite recently in the usability pack, in that the functionality has now been extended. So if I come into here and go into the module configuration here, I will have, don't think I do, let me just check it's switched on. Right, within my currency configuration here, what I've got is the ability to automatically populate the exchange rate tables within Business One. So there are a raft of different banks that I can use to gather those rates from, and this is a list that is increasing all the time. Normally we would use the European Central Bank here. You can determine the rounding of decimals, how frequently that data is checked for, how many back days and how many forward days it will populate, and also we'll start to create alerts and things around the exchange rate variances. So if the exchange rate is deviated by more than X percentage, it can warn you about that. You've also got the ability to add additional percentages to the exchange rate, so you can increase the exchange rate by a percentage if you wish. Now, initially, this function's been in the usability pack for a little while, and initially it was invoked by a user logging in. So when a user logged in, it would then go and pick up the exchange rates and populate them into the system. What it will do now is there's also a server setup. So within the server setup you can say, I want you to go at 4 o'clock every morning and update the exchange rates. So it doesn't require for a user to trigger that. Okay. I think the last thing that I'm going to show within here, just for this quick session today, is the search option up at the top. So again, this is not in Standard Business One. There is a search option here. Let me just close that window. So this is the Standard Business One search, and if I type Webster in there, it will bring me back Webster as a business partner. All right. If I use the Usability Pack search here, it will go away and look for all instances of Webster across the database. So if I open this up here, it is bringing me back a whole raft of additional information. So it's saying I have invoices, I have activities on the system, I've got a business partner that relates to Webster, I've got delivery notes, I've got incoming payments. So I've got all of the detail here of any document that is associated with Webster. Now I can on my advanced tab up here, I've got the ability to determine which parts of the system it's actually going to look at. So you can, if you're just in the sales side of it and you just want to have a look at quotes, orders and business partners, it will obviously stop the system then looking through data that isn't relevant to your specific query. So you can pare down again the data it looks at. Now, Webster there is quite an obvious one because it's one of my big customers on the database. But if I type Simon in here as well, what this will do is to go through and look through the text as well as the records in Business One. So this is now bringing me back all instances where Simon is used. So whether it's in the text, whether it's a contact within a business partner, etc. So if you want to do postcode lookups or name lookups or telephone lookups, you can use this B1 search to do all of that information for you. Okay. All right, I think I'm about done. Let's just have a quick look back through this config and make sure we've covered most things. There is also a master data manager option. again, this is part of the standard system, and what this will allow me to do is to, if I come into here, is to replicate and to bulk update things. So if I come into the business partner master data here, I've got an option to pull back all business partners here, or I can use very specific queries. So I could say pull back all customers or suppliers, or I can use a SQL condition here to pull back certain records. So I could say pull back all of my customers that are looked after by Peter, because what I want to do within here is to change the sales employee to this one. All right, so you can bulk select and then bulk update. And this will allow me to update the header information, all of the general information, all of the payment terms, and you can also see here it also allows me to bulk update any user-defined fields on that record. All right, so I can do that for master data. I can do it for item master data. I can also do it here for form settings. So I can take the form settings from a user, and I can take the settings that relate to David and apply them to other specific users. So in terms of the layout and which columns are ticked and how the documents are structured for particular users, you can create it once and then replicate it across multiple other people. And you've got the same there with the authorization manager. So you can take Sophie's authorizations and apply them to Paul. Now, within the database, that's great. What you also have here is an XML. So you can take the form settings and the authorizations from one database and copy them through to other databases in the system as well. All right? So it allows you to create those XML files and use those to copy across. Now, what I've done today is just to run you through very quickly some of the usability configuration. If I just jump over to here, there is quite a useful website. So Boyum have quite a good website here as well, and this will allow you to have a look and to create samples. All right, so it will talk to you about the V1 validation system and what you can do with it. It'll talk to you about the function buttons, and you can use both PDFs here, so you can actually follow the instructions that are given to you, or there is also an e-learning guide here as well, which will take you through each of the functions and show you how they work. So the usability pack is a cracking add-on to Business One. It's very well supported, and there's an awful lot of information that's out there about it. There are a lot of recorded sessions both here and also if you go onto YouTube. Rasmus has done a number of recorded sessions on there. So if you've got specific queries about the way things can be implemented, you can go onto YouTube and find that out as well.
But thank you very much for attending, and thank you very much, Sarah, for the presentation.
Most welcome.
And we look forward to speaking with you all soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye, guys.